I think the most common question asked to every enjoyer of any kind of media is, what is your favorite of all time? But what does that even mean, right? How do you quantify your favorite of all time? Is it the most time playing or watching? God, I hope not. My favorite game of all time would probably be VR chat at this point if that was the case. I think it has to do with what the experience of said piece of media means to you. It's kind of like a gut feeling, something you just feel. And since I'm finally kind of finding my groove with these videos, I thought this would be a fun topic to kind of start with, kind of get to know me based on my favorites. I'm going to make this 2 videos, this one talking about video games and the next one talking about animes. That seems to be the 2 genres of media that spark this kind of question anyway. And also, I don't recommend skipping to find out what my favorite is or brushing the timeline for the preview so you can get it spoiled. This is going to be kind of structured like a little story time thing about my experience with video games as a whole, so you don't want to spoil the epic reveal of PaperDawN's favorite game of all time, right? So, when I was a very young kiddie, video games were always kind of a big part of my life. First game I remember playing was Wario Land on the Game Boy, which honestly really holds up, by the way. I really believe this game did a lot to my tiny developing brain at the time. Sure, around the same time I played games like Mario Kart 64 and Pokemon Stadium or Lego Racers, but Wario Land was an adventure. You progressed through a bunch of different areas. It had bosses and level design and power-ups. It was way more involved to me, and at the time it inspired my imagination so much. All of my time pretending and playing with toys was always structured like a video game after playing that. It would always have levels and bosses and power-ups, etc. I'm sure I could write an entire video about the intricate design philosophy behind Bruno Adventure 2 alone, but I don't think YouTube lets you upload videos that long. It's interesting because Wario Land kind of became my standard. I loved games like Star Fox 64 and GoldenEye and Pokemon, yada yada, but Wario Land was always my favorite for being such an influence, I guess. Until a tiny, small, insignificant little game came out called Paper Mario. Ever heard of it? This game changed my life. Ever wonder where the paper part of my username comes from? Yeah, it's not because I love aisle 13 at Staples. Paper Mario was something way bigger than I had ever experienced. It was dense. It was a full open adventure that I was so unreasonably immersed in. I remember renting it over and over until eventually my parents got it for me for Christmas of 2001. I remember that year. I just loved to explore the areas. I loved to hang out with my partners. I probably had no idea what I was doing in the game because I was literally 6. I think I would usually just use a completed file that was on the cart already and just walk around and explore. I loved it so much. It meant everything to me. At that point, it was my definition of my favorite game of all time. Whenever someone asked, it was Paper Mario. Even my plush toy video games got more involved. I started drawing maps and coming up with my own badges and party members. I even came up with this idea. Plop a PNG of Paper Mario into Paint, copy him, flip it, print it out, fold it, cut it, and glue it to a piece of cardboard, and you have a little decently solid toy of Paper Mario. I remember doing this for every character in the game. I felt like a genius. Soon after, Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga came out, and that kind of elevated my love for this style of game in general. I used to call them take-turn games, because, turn-based combat. And really quick side note, Superstar Saga is excellent, by the way. This game is one of my favorites of all time, and it was so influential, it holds up unreasonably well. I want to make a standalone video about that game one day, honestly. But nothing trumped Paper Mario. Until... Yes, in 2004, Paper Mario got a sequel, The Thousand Year Door. And I didn't like it. At first. I remember renting it, kinda liking it, but getting ridiculously stuck in Chapter 2. I kinda just labeled it as not as good as the first game, and never got too far. Eventually, Super Paper Mario came out, and I fell in love with that one. It's basically why I got a Wii in the first place. And soon after, Paper Mario came out on Virtual Console on the Wii, and being a bit more gamer-brained, I was 11 at the time, I played through it again, and man, it was like a whole new game. It was still my self-proclaimed best game of all time at that point, but I felt like I was fully experiencing it for the first time. When I beat it, I was kinda bummed. I liked Super, but it wasn't the same. This was special. There wasn't anything like it. Why didn't they make another one? Oh, wait, but they did, and I kinda just skipped it. I remember having an epiphany oh yeah, Thousand Year Door. I remember looking up a video on YouTube, and I saw for a split second that you got Yoshi as a party member, and I immediately went to Amazon and bought it. I think I had birthday money at the time or something. That was in like 2008, so I was, 12 years old? And this experience of playing Thousand Year Door for the first time was actually life-changing. I know that sounds a little dramatic, but just hear me out. I couldn't believe I waited so long to play it. It was everything I could have wanted. But honestly, waiting to play it and not playing it when I was like 8 years old in 2004, I think it was kind of a smart idea. I devoured this game. I did everything I could do in it. I experienced ttyd. And man, if there's one game I wish I could have that first experience again, it's this. That playthrough might have been one of my most cherished playthroughs of any game I've ever played. I relished in every moment of that game. I didn't want it to end. And of course, like all of these examples, this game 1000% inspired my creativity. Funny enough, way back in 2008, I recorded a review of this game on this channel. It's really bad. It's actually kind of funny to just see how unwatchable the quality is in this video.
You can, what can you do? You can do all sorts of stuff.
It's not listed, by the way. It's unlisted, so don't even try. ttyd is still one of my favorite games of all time, but it's not quite my favorite. I'm not even really sure it tops the original in my head. I think ttyd is a better game for sure, but the aesthetics and the nostalgia for the original just fill me with a feeling. Like, ttyd fills me with a feeling too, but it's kind of a different feeling. It's hard to put one over the other. So yeah, Paper Mario basically defines me in every way. But around 2010, I was playing a lot of really good games. Portal, Mega Man 9, Mario Galaxy, Super Metroid, Ace Attorney, The World Ends With You. All these games would be very, very, very high on my favorites list. But I discovered one game that truly changed my life. And I know I keep saying that, but this one's the big one. So around 2010, I was told about a game that was coming out in WiiWare, and it had some hype around it. But I was also told that the game was completely free to download on PC. After seeing some gameplay, it looked right up my alley, kind of a mix of Mega Man and Metroid, with a little bit of Blaster Master, which was one of my favorite NES games at the time. I'm sure some people know what I'm talking about right now. I was introduced to Cave Story. I had quite literally never heard the name before. This game was some random freeware game from 2004. It existed in this weird corner of the internet and had extremely passionate fans. And this sort of weird status Cave Story had intrigued me so much. It felt like a true hidden gem to me. I didn't really want to wait for the WiiWare version to come out, so I was able to patch the game and play the freeware version. And I'm not even going to sugarcoat this. This game was beautiful. Knowing the context that this was a passion project by one guy, Daisuke Amaya, or Pixel, made the experience really, really unique. This was entirely this guy's creation, the characters, the gameplay, the story, and it filled me with so much inspiration. I had never seen or experienced something like this. Games always felt like these magical things that were made by these professionals, but this felt homey and personal. It's moody, it's funny, it's weird, it's surreal. It feels like an extension of Pixel himself. This is his world and his characters. It's also really fun and really solid. I've probably played better Metroidvania-style games, but nothing quite hits like Cave Story does. It combines so many genres and styles that I fell in love with over the last 13 years at that point. The game is a pretty linear adventure that has you traversing through this crazy underground world. There's a ton of fun weapons to get, alternate paths to take, and different endings to see. A lot of really memorable characters and really memorable set pieces. And backed up by honestly some stunning pixel art. I mean, where do you think his name Pixel comes from? And some killer music. Seriously, the OST in this game is ridiculous. Apparently Pixel had no experience creating music, but could have fooled me with songs like Running Hell. But ultimately, I think this game reminded me of what I loved about video games in the first place. Games from the very beginning inspired me to create and imagine my own mechanics, characters, and worlds, and this game felt like a culmination of that. I related to Pixel, despite not knowing him at all, obviously, but this love for the video game medium and expressing how it influenced your imagination and creativity is something that felt nostalgic. It felt like I was playing one of those stupid plush toy games I made up as a kid, except this was probably actually well designed. Cave Story represents why I love this medium so much, why it stuck with me for 25 years, why it's inspired almost everything I do now. So yeah, if it isn't obvious, that's why Cave Story is my favorite game of all time. Or maybe it's actually VR chat after all. Oh god, I hope that's not the case. So yeah, that begs the question, what's your favorite game of all time? Or how easy do you think it is to answer that question at all? I think it's 1000% fair to think that questions like this are completely BS, and it'd be impossible to pick a favorite. I think it's totally subjective on what makes your favorite. But let me know, anyway, because, comment section being active, yada yada. Next time, I'll be talking about my favorite anime. What could possibly be my favorite? Hopefully the answer surprises you, because it always kind of surprises me too, so I will see you all next time.